You know what's always interesting about the Super Bowl every single year is that there always seems to be some big news that drops, either related to the teams that are playing in the Super Bowl or just completely unrelated and relating to other teams not in the Super Bowl. We had some of that news come on Sunday, on Super Bowl Sunday, and even a little bit before that. We've got some guys that a lot of people in the Dynasty community are thinking, what do I do with this player? Now, not all of the guys that are on this list today are players that we heard news about just the other day. Not all of them are like that. There are a couple, but not all of them are like that. But this is a group of guys that I think people are just wondering, is it time to panic? Is it time to panic sell? Is it time to buy? Or is it just time to stay pat and hold? So we're going through these players today, deciding whether or not we should panic on them and decide whether we're buying, holding, or selling these particular players today. This is a new channel exclusively for Dynasty Fantasy Football, so please go down there, drop a like on this video, and subscribe to the channel to show your support if you get value from this video. Let's go ahead and dive into this group of guys right here. So the first guy up here, this particular player has there's questions that are just unrelated to his play. Like, I think that when people just sit back and watch this guy play, when he's fully healthy, there's no question about Joe Burrow of the Cincinnati Bengals. I think the entirety of the panic that people may be feeling right now with Joe Burrow is, can he stay healthy? And it is a legitimate question. I mean, his rookie year, he gets that torn ACL, and it was a bad one. Like, it was not a good ACL tear. Now, he comes back the next year immediately after that and takes his team to the Super Bowl. So that is my point, what I said about you understanding that when this guy is fully healthy, he's making things happen. He's a baller. He is a total baller. Joe Burrow, I think that the ultimate question is, can this guy stay healthy? Because it didn't happen in 2023. He started out the season with a calf injury that lingered into the season. I mean, it stayed with him for as long as he played. So he has that calf injury, gets it early in the training camp process of late July and early August. Well, then what happens? Well, then he screws his wrist up, right? Gets some ligament damage in his wrist, and then he misses the rest of the season. Only plays 10 games, and the problem is that even in the games that he played, look at what he did. It just isn't good enough. 15 touchdowns in 10 games is just simply not good enough. He didn't even average 16 fantasy points per game. So Joe Burrow had a lot of issues in 2023, and there's people that are wondering, what do we do with Joe Burrow? Joe Burrow, there's a lot of things that we can look at here. Now, I want to introduce something that I have not said on this channel, and some of you may have read this book. My cousin actually brought me a book, and he said, you should read this. It's a book about Joe Burrow. And in that book, there was friends of his, family of his, and old coaches that testified to basically say that Joe Burrow is a football player first. So what does that mean? That may just sound like a ridiculous thing that I just said. So what they gave examples of was, this guy doesn't think like a quarterback. So there's an old video of him when he was with Ohio State, before he transferred to LSU in college. There was an old video of him playing a drill with a linebacker on Ohio State. Basically, both players got a hold of the tire, and they were supposed to pull the tire and the player to their side of the field. Joe Burrow won that tire drill against a linebacker on Ohio State. And a lot of people said, like, this is just the mentality he has. There's countless times where you could see that this guy is running the ball and not sliding as a quarterback should. Now, from a true football fan like myself, and probably like many of you watching, this is a super attractive quality. You want your players to be completely tough, hard-nosed football players. Those are the players that understand what it takes to win. And Joe Burrow has proved that. But there is that element to it where it's like, look, you're not Josh Allen. You do not have the size, the athleticism of a player like Josh Allen, or you're not a linebacker either, right? So you should be playing a little smarter. There's two sides to that coin. Let me know what side you're on in the comments below. I'm curious. But there is that group of people right now who I think with Joe Burrow, they're panicking a little bit. I think that if you have Joe Burrow, you should definitely hold him. And if you don't have him, you should buy him. Because if there really is someone in your league who has Joe Burrow and they're worried about his future and his ability to stay healthy, this is just the type of player you take the shot on. Because he, like I said, he may very well have injury issues for his whole career. But when I could get that upside with a player like Jamar Chase as well, a player who has taken a dysfunctional, historically franchise to the Super Bowl just a couple years earlier, I will take the shot on that player any day of the week. So I do believe that Joe Burrow is a buy, and you should not be panic selling on Joe Burrow. The next guy on here, I've had doubts about this player from the first day one. And it took a lot of people, a lot of the Dynasty community a while to kind of see the light, so to speak, on DeAndre Swift of the now Philadelphia Eagles. DeAndre Swift has so many things to like, right? Like if you look at his efficiency numbers in 2023, still very, very efficient. Had his first 1,000-yard rushing season and the first time he carried the ball over 200 times. DeAndre Swift was not bad by any stretch of the imagination, especially where you drafted him. He played above his draft price. DeAndre Swift is also at a young age. In Dynasty Fantasy Football, that's what we want to see, is a player who's not yet 25, 26 years old. And DeAndre Swift is still in a good spot because DeAndre Swift, well, he's 25, just turned 25 though. So he's got a full season in his age 25 season to see exactly where he lands, right? DeAndre Swift, from an efficiency standpoint, from an on-play, like during game perspective, he's a very fun player to watch. So there's a lot of people that are wondering, what to do with him. And I'm speaking from experience here because in one of my Dynasty leagues, I have had the same manager try to sell me DeAndre Swift multiple times this offseason. And that tells me that he sees the problems that are arising here. And I would sell DeAndre Swift if I had him. DeAndre Swift, let's discuss the age factor, right? When you're in Dynasty, I think that sometimes there's a line that people cross when it comes to the age of players, especially at the running back position, right? Because running back shelf life is just much shorter than a wide receiver, a quarterback, even a tight end. And when we're looking at DeAndre Swift, what we've seen is basically last year, his upside was top 20 running back in fantasy football. In a full PPR league, he was the running back 20. In 2022, running back 21. In 2021, running back 15. And his rookie season, running back 18. So his upside is basically the running back 15. And who knows if he'll even hit that again. So yes, he is a younger player. Yes, he does have upside on a football team. He's efficient. But if we're just buying a player based on age who doesn't have real game-changing upside, what's the point of selling a guy like Christian McCaffrey for DeAndre Swift in draft capital? Because we know what we're going to get from McCaffrey. McCaffrey can still play. McCaffrey can still play at a high level for another year or maybe two. What's the point of selling a guy like Saquon Barkley, who may very well go to the Chargers and be their lead workhorse back? There's no point to me. Because I know with those players, we can get elite production. From a DeAndre Swift, he may very well be a descending asset at this point. So I think he has clear selling points that people will be interested in. But if you're asking me what I would personally do, if I have this guy, I'm selling him. If I don't have him, I'm not buying him. Because I just don't see the long-term upside from a player who is 25, yes, still at a decently young age, can theoretically do it at a high level for another 2 to 3 seasons. But his high-level performance the last 2 years has been the running back 20. I just do not think this player is worth it and not worth a buy in Dynasty Fantasy Football. The next guy right here, this is some serious stuff we got to talk about. And listen, before I get into this player, I am not here to discuss the morality of what is going on with this situation. This is not a morality channel. This is a Dynasty Fantasy Football channel. I am here to help you make dynasty decisions in Dynasty Fantasy Football. And of course, I am talking about Zay Flowers of the Baltimore Ravens. Now, I think it was just last week, as of the time of this filming, the day after the Super Bowl, there was reports came out that Zay Flowers is under investigation for domestic violence. So again, I'm not here to discuss morality. You are not here for morality advice from me. Nobody wants that. Here's what we know about the NFL and how they handle domestic violence. So obviously, the ironic part about this is if you've been a football fan for a long time, you may remember the Ray Rice case in the mid-2010s, 2013, 2014, around that time. Now, Ray Rice was a Baltimore Raven. And there was months that went by where the Ravens were familiar with the accusations that he hit his wife, and the NFL knew about it too. Well, several months into the 2014 season, I think, a video came out. The infamous Ray Rice video came out. And from there, the Ravens had to react. And they cut him that very day. Now, my whole argument is, do you think the Ravens didn't know about that before it got out? Do you think the NFL didn't have access to that footage before TMZ put it out? No, of course they knew. They knew exactly what was happening. So here's my thing with Zay Flowers. Zay Flowers is obviously on the same team that has dealt with this nightmare before. So if there is video out there of Zay Flowers doing whatever he did, and by the way, some more deep details came out in another report that there was a 911 call and again, read the details for yourself. Zay Flowers, if there is some truth to this is going to be bad, because Zay Flowers, I think his fate as a Raven is up in the air. Now, we may look back, you may be watching this video in like April, and it turns out it was nothing, right? And I may sound ridiculous for even saying this. What I am saying, though, is that I know people are panicking on it, because people understand the repercussions of this type of situation. So, in Dynasty Fantasy Football, I'm going to buy this player. And if I have him, I'm holding him. Because here's the thing, we don't know what happened. We have no idea what happened. It may very well be nothing. And if you sell this player based on an idea that might or may not come to fruition, well, if Zay Flowers has another several great seasons or a great career with Baltimore, you're going to feel ridiculous, right? So, Zay Flowers, from a dynasty perspective, if I could get a panicked Zay Flowers owner who says, I'd rather get value from him now than have him cut by the Ravens, no team touches him, and then at that point, he's got no value. If I can find that manager who has Zay Flowers in my dynasty league, I'm going to buy Zay Flowers, because we know nothing yet. It may be bad, it may not be. But if I can get this level of a player that is this important to the offense, I'm going to take a chance and buy Zay Flowers this offseason. The last guy on this list right here, looking like he's not going to be on his former team, and he had a great career. I think it's getting to the end for Stefon Diggs. Stefon Diggs is looking like he's probably not going to be a Bill in 2024. Now, Stefon Diggs, what's so interesting is that he had really a tale of two seasons. Stefon Diggs was a player that really was just looking like he normally does in the beginning part of the season. Like, he looked like he was bound to have another top 5 to top 8 wide receiver season in fantasy. And then Joe Brady took over the play calling duties when Ken Dorsey got fired, and it changed. Like, James Cook was the focal point of the offense. Now, Joe Brady is their offensive coordinator now. And there had been unrest with Stefon Diggs in Buffalo for really over a year now. Stefon Diggs, I don't think is going to be a Bill. Is that good for him? Is that bad for him? I'll tell you this. Stefon Diggs is he 30 or is he 29? Let's take a look really quick and see what Stefon Diggs is. Stefon Diggs is 30. We're talking about a 30-year-old wide receiver who's had a very good career. He's also a talker. He likes to have the ball in his hands. He's been known for doing it in Buffalo. He was known for doing it in Minnesota. What team is going to pay up big money for Stefon Diggs to be their wide receiver 1 at 30 years old? I don't think there's many teams out there that will. So I think the chances that Stefon Diggs are a wide receiver 1 are very minuscule at this point. I don't think he's going to be a team's wide receiver 1. So that becomes a problem because if you have him in Dynasty, the chances that you're going to get a first rounder for him, very, very small anymore. So Stefon Diggs, the way I look at this is that this is not a Keenan Allen type of situation where he's going to continue to be the wide receiver 1 on his team. Stefon Diggs is about to lose production, and if you can get any kind of value for him, like maybe a Mike Evans type of player, maybe you can get an AJ Brown package deal done, or maybe you could just get a high second round pick. I would do this particular thing. You don't want to sell him for nothing because he still does have value, but if you can get that right deal, that is a high draft capital pick, maybe include somebody else with Stefon Diggs that has some potential upside, include him for a first rounder. That's the move I would make because I do not want Stefon Diggs on my Dynasty team. So let me know what you think of these guys in the comments below and what questions you need answered for 2024 Dynasty Fantasy Football. And if you want to see some buy low trade targets that you can get right now in Dynasty Fantasy Football, click on this video right here.